On a late September evening in 2025, the Blue Line train pulled into Scalabark Station, just miles from downtown Charlotte, North Carolina. It was an ordinary night on what should have been an ordinary commute. But in just 4 minutes, two lives would collide in an act of violence that would shake a community and ignite a national conversation about mental health, criminal justice, and the safety of our most vulnerable. Before we continue, welcome to True Crime Seeker. In this channel, we dive deep into shocking cases and seek the truth behind every crime. Don't forget to subscribe for more. This is the story of Iryna Zarutska, a 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee who escaped one war only to face violence in her adopted home. And Decarlos Brown, a man whose family says the system failed him when he needed help most. The night of September 9th, 2025. Iryna Zarutska was just another passenger when she boarded the late-night Blue Line train. She wore khaki pants and a dark shirt. Her long blonde hair had been tucked under a hat from Zepede's pizzeria where she worked. Like nearby passengers, the 23-year-old bowed her head as the train continued on, absorbed by the phone in her hand. Zarutska, a refugee from Ukraine, had picked an empty row and sat in front of a man in a red sweatshirt. She was unaware of their imminent collision course. Behind her sat Decarlos Brown. Security footage would later show him fidgeting and restless. He nodded his head, then shook it. He sat with his hood pulled over his long hair, abruptly upright, and then slouched forward to rest his head on the seat in front of him. Occasionally, he swayed back and forth. Just 4 minutes after Zarutska boarded, Brown dug into the fold of his clothes and took out what appeared to be a knife. For a moment, he looked back out the window as if that was all he was going to do. But in a quick movement, he launched up and swung his arm over the seat and fatally stabbed Zarutska, who clutched her face and throat before slouching to the ground. Zarutska died on the train from her injuries as passengers kneeled over her trying to help. Brown has been charged with first-degree murder in her killing. To understand this tragedy, we need to go back to who Iryna Zarutska was. Her mother called her gift an artist's gift. It wasn't just her ability to sculpt or design clothes, though she loved to do that. Zarutska, who had a degree in art and restoration from Synergy College in Kyiv, often bestowed her art on family and friends. Her artist's gift was what her mother affectionately called her ability to sleep for wonderfully long stretches. She was a homebody, happiest when surrounded by family and loved ones. Zarutska left Ukraine in August 2022, 6 months after Russia invaded, to escape the war. A family friend named Lonnie told local media that Zarutska endured daily bombing in Ukraine and the agony of not knowing if you're going to live or breathe another day. She fled with her mother, sister, and brother, found a home in North Carolina, and embraced life in Charlotte. She attended Rowan Cabarrus Community College and dreamed of becoming a veterinary assistant. She often cared for her neighbors' pets, and many fondly remember seeing her walking them through the neighborhood, always with her radiant smile. Zarutska worked in the lively Lower South End area dotted with breweries, apartment complexes, and coffee shops. She had been inching toward independence and learning to drive, but in the meantime, she would take the train. Days before the stabbing, Decarlos Brown showed up at his mother's house. Michelle Dewitt said her son, who was homeless and living at a local shelter, asked to stay the night. The next morning, Brown's mother dropped him off at a Statesville Avenue shelter, a few miles away from the Scalabark station. She hugged him and told her son she loved him before heading to church. When she found out about the stabbing and his arrest, Dewitt couldn't believe it was her son. She had kicked him out before for becoming too violent, but still, she thought the identification must have been a mistake. Brown had a history of mental health issues and had been struggling in recent years. His sister, Tracy Brown, said he had been diagnosed with schizophrenia and suffered hallucinations and paranoia. Decarlos Brown had spent more than 5 years in prison for robbery with a dangerous weapon. When he got out in 2020, his sister said she felt she was dealing with a different person. He didn't seem like himself. Her brother struggled to have simple conversations and couldn't hold down a job. He would sometimes become aggressive. Decarlos attacked his sister in 2022. He bit her and broke the hinges of a door, but she decided to drop the charges out of concern for his mental health issues. "I knew he was battling something," Tracy Brown said, but the family struggled to get him help. Their mother had tried to get Brown placed in a long-term facility, but her attempts failed because she wasn't his guardian. He told his sister multiple times the government had implanted a chip in him. Earlier in 2025, Brown asked officers to investigate a man-made material that he believed controlled when he ate, walked, and talked. Officers told Brown the issue was a medical issue and there was nothing more they could do. Upset, he called 911. Brown was charged with misuse of 911, a Class 1 misdemeanor. His release was conditioned on a written promise that he would appear for his next hearing. He was free to walk the streets. Tracy Brown believes her brother suffered a disastrous mental break that night. Brown later told his sister he attacked the woman because she was reading his mind. A person that is hearing voices in their head and believes the world is against them, they're going to break, she told reporters. And I think that night he broke. In the days after the release of video of the attack, the stabbing and Brown's lengthy criminal history became a rallying cry for the Trump administration and conservative politicians. They pointed to it as an example of the violent crime they say plagues Democrat-led cities across the United States. President Donald Trump used the crime to justify the deployment of federal troops to Los Angeles and Washington, D.C., while threatening to deploy the National Guard to Chicago. North Carolina and every state needs law and order and only Republicans will deliver it, Trump posted on Truth Social, calling Brown a career criminal. The White House said Brown's release left him free to slaughter an innocent woman. Charlotte Mayor Vi Lyles and Brown's family have both said the killing is in part due to failures of a court system that allowed Brown to re-enter the community despite a record of mental illness and multiple convictions. The case highlights the complex intersection of mental health care, criminal justice, and public safety. Brown's family believes he was failed by both the criminal justice and health care systems. In conclusion, ultimately, this is the story of two people whose paths fatally converged. A woman who escaped violence only to face it in the United States, and a man whose family members believe he was failed by the very systems designed to help him. Charlotte had been Iryna's refuge from the violence abroad, but she lost her life there in a senseless act that might have been prevented. As family friend Lonnie said, "It's very, very sickening and sad that we have such evil in our society today." But perhaps the real tragedy lies not just in the evil that exists, but in the systems that failed to intervene before two lives collided on a late-night train, forever changing the trajectory of families, a community, and our understanding of how we care for society's most vulnerable members. Do you think this tragedy could have been prevented? Tell me your thoughts under the comments section.